How to inject TB-500. Now, this gets asked as question all the time because there's nothing worse than when you have that little tiny insulin syringe and you've got your BPC or your thymosin beta-4 or TB-500 or whatever peptide it is, and you're terrified, like wondering how to inject it. And I get where you're at. Don't worry, because in this video, what I'm going to do is show you what not to do and how you can actually damage the peptide if you don't handle it properly. We've seen people have reactions to peptides because of the angle of the needle and because of the fact that they're injecting themselves over and over again in the same place. And I'm also going to show you how you can mix this lyophilized agent or the powder properly so you don't damage the peptides. So by the end of this video, you're going to have 100% confidence in your ability to inject TB-500, and maybe it will give you some insights on how to inject any of the peptides. So let's jump into the science. So first of all, TB-500 is a phenomenal peptide. I mean, if you want really healthy levels of stem cell expression, TB-500 is your way to go. If you're looking to recover faster from workouts, if you want better angiogenesis, which means formation of new blood vessels, TB-500 is unbeatable. Love this peptide. When I first started using it over a decade ago, I thought I wasn't working out hard enough. I was like, oh, I need to increase the weights I'm lifting. I was doing CrossFit at the time, and then I looked at my times previously before I started taking it, and I'm like, I'm actually going harder. I'm getting better times on these WODs. And so thymosin beta-4 or TB-500, TB-500 is typically a fragment of thymosin beta-4. Thymosin beta-4 is the natural peptide. And so either one of these, here's how it works. So if you're going to do injections, the thing you want to do is you want to find a place on your body that's easy to access. So I like doing the side of my body, either side around the belt, just right above the belt. I don't mind doing it in my arms, but that intimidates a lot of people. You just want to make sure that if you're doing injections of peptides, areas like your arm, just avoid your neck. Do not hit your carotid artery. That could be very dangerous, obviously. But you want to make sure that you've got some flesh there, because these needles is called a subcutaneous injection. And these are very tiny little insulin syringes, and it's a 31 gauge needle, sometimes 32 gauge. So that means it's just tiny, tiny. And all you want to do is you want to put the injection site, put the needle angle at about 60 degrees. So 45 to 60 degrees. If you go straight in, then it can pinch and your body's going to say, oh, I don't like that. And if you do feel that, even if the needle's at an angle, if you feel like this response where it hurts, then just simply go to a different place and you want to gently plunge it into your skin. If you're forcing it in, sometimes that's fine. Like I've done it so many times, I can just kind of pop it in. But in the beginning, just gently put the needle in, like I said, at about a 60-degree angle, and then just slowly push the peptide into your body. Now, the things that can go wrong, and we actually had a client of ours, and he was using thymosin beta-4, and he called us up because he's like, I keep getting this skin rash where I'm injecting the thymosin beta-4. Are you injecting in the same place every time? And he's like, yeah, I thought I had to. And we're like, no, because a lot of times we just inject around the navel. You can inject in your lower abdomen because it's an easy place to access, and most of us have a little extra skin there. And he said, oh, I need to rotate it. He didn't realize that you want to rotate it. So once he rotated it, we called him up a week later. How's the rash doing? He said, there's no rash anymore. He said that solved the problem. But he was to the place where he thought he was having an immune response. He thought there was something dangerous going on in his body. I mean, when you first start peptides, for those of you who it's a new world to, it can be very intimidating. So hopefully that helps, sequester some of that fight or flight response. Okay, so what if you get the powdered version? So we have only compounding pharmacies that we use. I would not recommend that you're taking these research use only peptides because you don't know the quality, you don't know the source, and they don't have the same regulations that licensed compounding pharmacies do. So we use 3 pharmacies primarily, and these pharmacies are all licensed. They've gone through audits with FDA inspectors. They've all passed it. These are brilliant pharmacists who know how to sequence the peptides in the right way. They know how stable these peptides are or are not. They know how to handle them properly. And so for those of you who have one of our pharmacies that now we're just sending the lyophilized agent, we ask them for shipping reasons to help ensure that the peptides are more stable, because in their powder form, we said, hey, we want to make sure we get those to our client's house so they can actually use them, even if that ice block has melted because it's so hot right now. And so what you do when you get the powdered version, you want to make sure you're not pushing the back or the bacteriostatic water, so it's called BAC. You want to make sure that you're not plunging it directly onto the powder, because remember, these peptides are slowly waking them up. There's all this life force in there in these covalent bonds, but the electricity happens when you have that sterile water or bacteriostatic water that gets put into that vial. And so you want to look at the dosing, and we'll have very specific instructions. But when you go to inject it, make sure that you're just injecting it into the side of the bottle. So maybe you're putting in, most of the time you'll put in about 3 milliliters of water. And you just want to make sure that you're injecting it very slowly into the powder. And then you don't want to shake the powder, because once again, it disrupts the peptides. You want to let these peptides unfold and come to life. It's like blowing up a balloon, and the balloon has a very particular shape, and you just want to let it take its shape. And then instead of shaking it up, you want to watch the powder and make sure that all that powder becomes what's called constituted. And then you just want to gently swirl it if it needs to be swirled, and then let it sit for about a minute before you inject yourself. And then once you've injected yourself, you want to make sure you have an alcohol swab. You clean the top of the bottle before you plunge your needle into it. And then you want to store it in your refrigerator. And if it's stored outside of your refrigerator, you've got about 72 hours to a week where the peptides are stable, and otherwise they can start to break down if they're in too hot of a condition. Most of these peptides, they're good once you've constituted or reconstituted that powder. Most of the time these peptides are safe for about 90 to 120 days. Anything after that, like if you forgot about the peptide, it ended up in the back of your fridge, it probably isn't effective. Most of the time it's not going to cause any kind of infection or reaction, but the peptide structures have started to denature, so you're not going to get that response. So you're kind of, you're not really doing yourself a service. The other thing that may sound kind of simple, but you want to make sure when you're pulling out peptides that you're tipping the bottle upside down and pulling peptides into the syringe. We did have a patient who, for over a month, she was injecting air because she just was pulling up air and thinking she got it to the right place and then injecting her body. And then I met with her about a month later and she's like, I'm not getting any results in this program, Regan. My husband's doing amazing. I think you got me on the wrong peptides. And I'm like, well, you should be moving from, the epitalin. Now you're moving into the tirzepatide, and are you there yet? She's like, well, I haven't finished this first bottle. That's impossible. She's like, no, I've been doing it just as prescribed. And so I said, all right, show me how you're pulling it up. She shows me, and it was air. That can be a real thing. And so when you're doing these, you just want to make sure, first of all, rule number 1, when you're reconstituting it, make sure you're very gentle with these beautiful peptides because they are fragile. And that's one reason the pharmaceutical companies haven't completely taken over the peptide world, where they're still in their natural state, but be very gentle with it. Second thing is make sure you clean the area off with an alcohol swab and clean off the top, and we send you all the instructions. Do it as prescribed. And talk to one of the providers on the East-West team. They can help inform you, but generally speaking, what's the dosing on the bottle as the pharmacy has labeled it? That's what you want to follow. And then make sure that you rotate the areas. Now, if you're in your shoulders or if you have pain in your knee, then you just want to watch out for anything that could be damaged. And such a tiny needle, it's almost impossible to damage yourself. But make sure there's flesh, and that's really the main thing that you need. You can do it in your shoulder, your glute, you can do it in your leg, anywhere that's convenient for you. And if you do have an injury, sometimes injecting peptides like the growth hormone peptides or, ARA290, or even like the mitochondrial peptides, and especially the BPC and thymosin beta-4 peptides, you can inject them right into the area that you have an injury, and you'll see an acceleration of the speed of healing and recovery. The final thing that you want to do is don't use the same needle day in and day out. We'll send you new needles that puts your body at extreme risk. And so if you loved what you learned today and you want to go deeper into the benefits of BPC-157 and TB-500, I provided a link in the show notes that takes you to my video on just how well these peptides work. I'll see you there.